Last time, Gorino, the radical monk and founder of a new order known as the Order of the Five Rings, seemed to hit his lowest ebb with the loss of two of his most prominent supporters, only for the grace of reversals to occur when a new emperor assumed the throne and appointed him Imperial Advisor, which meant that now he had on his side a descendant of the Kami Hante himself, a man whose word in the Emerald Empire was law. To be Imperial Advisor was not just to be head of the Emperor's counselors, not just simply the one who gave the Emperor advice. To be Imperial Advisor meant that you are the one who keeps the Emperor informed on what goes on in the Empire and the one who makes appointments for others to see the Emperor. In a system where the Emperor was at the center of all things, the source from which all power and honor flowed, to be Imperial Advisor was to be the gatekeeper, the one who controlled access to the Emperor. This is why Gorino's appointment to this post was such a big deal for him, and for his movement. Now, only those who were sympathetic to Gorino and his cause had access to the Emperor for petitions. Now, Gorino was the filter through which Hante XIII learned about what was going on in the Emerald Empire. And now that the monk had the ear of the Emperor himself, he was determined to push forward his idea of 5 rings, 5 clans. Back at the beginning, he had proposed that balance could be restored only by the merging of the two so-called clans of air, the Crane and Scorpion clans. The best way to achieve this union, so Gorino reasoned, was to compel major members of both clans to marry. And so, with the Emperor's backing, several arranged marriages were arranged between the Crane and Scorpion, much to the consternation of both clans. Emboldened by Gorino's rising star, many monks of the Order of the Five Rings began to openly harass and attack other sects of the Brotherhood of Shinsei. The Fortunists in particular came under assault, as many blamed them for the death of Kuni Watabe, one of their movement's big supporters. Meanwhile, other affairs were afoot in the Empire. Bayushi Tsuya, champion of the Scorpion clan, and thus a man very much opposed to Gorino's scheme of uniting his clan with that of the Crane, was determined to undermine the new Imperial Advisor, a goal that he felt could be furthered by crushing the power of the Lion clan, Gorino's principal ally aside from the Emperor himself. Using the recently captured fortress of Lion's Shadow as a jumping-off point, Tsuya personally led a massive Scorpion army to assault the castle of Kyuden Ikoma, leaving a faithful subordinate, Bayushi Takeda, as garrison commander of Lion's Shadow. Unfortunately, the attempted siege of Kyuden Ikoma failed miserably, succeeding in nothing but giving Akodo Kento all the excuse he needed to retaliate. The whole reason that Kento had aligned himself with Gorino and his cause was that he had seen it as an opportunity to humble the Scorpion and Crane clans. He was especially interested in humbling the Scorpion because it hadn't been that long since they had taken Lion's Shadow away from his clan, and Kento wanted it back. Commanding the so-called Matsu Second Army, one of the most formidable army groups of the Lion Clan, and some unexpected assistance from the Dragon Clan led by the General Muramoto Dehoda, Kento successfully laid siege to Lion's Shadow and slaughtered its entire garrison, every man, woman, and child. Thus, the shame inflicted upon the Lion by the Scorpion clan was avenged in blood. And so the castle was given another name, a name that it would carry into the present day: Kenson Gaka, Humility's Lesson, a constant reminder to the Lion Clan both of the defeat and how that defeat was avenged. The Lion would also commemorate their victory at the Battle of Kenson Gaka with a festival held every year at the castle, known as the Festival of the Humble Turtle. No one ever learned exactly why the Dragon Clan chose to intervene on behalf of the Lion, a mystery that was only compounded when the General Muramoto Dehoda died 2 weeks after Kenson Gaka's retaking. The Dragon are odd like that. Only one member of the Scorpion garrison, Shosuro Butte, survived. He wanted to take revenge, but since clan champion Bayushi Tsuya had committed seppuku after the fall of Kenson Gaka, leadership had passed to his daughter Bayushi Megumi, and the Scorpion clan had decided that they would lick their wounds rather than seek retribution. So incensed did Butte become that he renounced his status as a samurai and became a ronin, which enabled him to act without any blowback to his clan. He would end up assassinating over 4 lion officers, most of whom had been present at the Battle of Kenson Gaka, before finally being executed, oddly enough, for a crime he didn't commit. The Battle of Kenson Gaka, however, proved to be a significant moment in the history of the Heresy of Five Rings, for Gorino saw the perfect opportunity to push forward the merger of the Scorpion and Crane clans. Bayushi Megumi, now clan champion of the Scorpion, was unmarried, while Doji Iwata, champion of the Crane clan, was a widower. How better to cement this uniting of the clans of air than by having Megumi and Iwata marry? Naturally, both were opposed to this, but the Emperor once again gave his full support to Gorino's proposal. In the end, the only thing that stopped the marriage from going forward then and there was Megumi successfully convincing Hantei XIII to allow her to observe the traditional 3 years of mourning for her father before marrying Iwata. Either way, the two clan champions were betrothed, with Hantei XIII declaring this new unified clan to be designated the Hawk Clan. Now, of course, the Emperor's will could not be defied, but it could be protested, and dozens of samurai from both Scorpion and Crane clans protested this proposed destruction of their clan identity in the only way they could, through a specific variant of seppuku known as kanshi. Where ordinary seppuku is usually an act of atonement, a way for a samurai to erase the stain of a dishonor, kanshi is a form of suicide which a samurai commits to protest or condemn the actions of his or her lord. But while many Crane and Scorpion samurai killed themselves in order to tell the Emperor and Gorino exactly what they thought of this proposed merger of the clans of air, those who remained alive took actions of their own. In a rare and remarkable instance of shared purpose, the Scorpion, Crane, Phoenix, and Dragon clans all combined to launch a covert campaign against the Order of the Five Rings, even as monks from that order continued to openly harass and attack anyone they knew to be opposed to them. Scorpion champion Bayushi Megumi briefly considered the idea of assassinating Imperial advisor Gorino, but ultimately dismissed the idea for reasons unknown. Then, in the year 534, 1 year after the announced betrothal of Bayushi Megumi and Doji Iwata, the leading members of the Brotherhood of Shinsei gathered together in their decennial Great Convocation to discuss the Order of the Five Rings. Apparently, this discussion lasted a very long time, for while the assembled monks and Shugenja were still debating the matter, the calendar turned and the Emerald Empire entered the fateful year of 535. Following the assault on Kyuden Kuni, there had been persistent Shadowland and even Oni assaults upon the lands of the Crab Clan. But in 535, these attacks petered out. A new, more bellicose man now led the Crab, Hida Yamate, and in the absence of demons and tainted monsters to fight, he saw an opportunity to swipe some rich land from the Crane clan while they were distracted by the chaos unleashed by the Order of Five Rings and their upcoming merger with the Scorpion clan. At first, the Crab incursion was successful. The Crane's southern armies, mostly led by the Daidoji, were swept aside, and the Crab actually managed to take a few decent bites out of the southern Crane provinces. But then a most unexpected opposition manifested in the form of a group of artisans led by one Kakita Wayozu. A gentlewoman of even temper, Wayozu had been born in 450 during the reign of Hantei Retsuhime. By now, she was 85, and had gained the singular distinction of becoming the first woman to be made headmistress of that most prestigious of Rokugani institutions, the Kakita Academy. A staunch traditionalist, she was a natural opponent of Gorino and his Order of the Five Rings, and promoted artworks that commemorated and supported the traditional order of 6 great clans in the Emerald Empire. Still, her appearance on the battlefield seemed an odd choice. Though trained in the arts of the warrior, Wyozu's skills had lain in the gentler arts of the samurai, in painting and calligraphy. To the crab army, comprised mostly of Hida warriors, this seemed a pathetic desperation play. And at first, their beliefs were confirmed as they cut down most of the Kakita artisans with ease, and the remainder retreated across a bridge spanning the River of White Waters. Wyozu, seemingly undeterred, gathered the remaining artisans together at the distant end of the bridge, and then something miraculous happened. By some means that no one had ever seen and that Wyozu had never exhibited before, the headmistress of the Kakita Academy somehow worked a mighty spell, channeling the artistic talents of the Kakita artisans. Poets, painters, storytellers, actors, each and every one poured their souls into the great work. For a moment, a strange, fantastic realm shimmered before the eyes of all present. Then the bodies of the artisans crumbled to dust, and the crab army vanished without a trace. All that was left behind for the astonished crane survivors to find was a book containing calligraphy in a language that no one ever managed to decipher. Alongside the calligraphy, there were pictures of the crab army, while the vanished Kakita artisans were depicted along the book's binding. No one ever really understood what happened that fateful day. Had the crane artisans killed themselves along with the crab army with their strange miracle? Or did both sides live on in a strange fantasy world that existed only in the pages of the book? Either way, this miraculous crane victory would be commemorated with celebrations held at Kyuden Kakita every year on the 16th day of the month of the dragon. The mysterious magic book was presented as a gift to Hantei the 13th. The crab, for their part, managed to hold on to the territory they'd gained up until the battle at the River of White Waters, but would be forced to hand it back to the Crane clan years later under diplomatic pressure. And so the rest of 535 passed. The days ticked down to when Bayushi Megumi and Doji Iwata were to be married, and the new Hawk clan would be created. It was 1 week to the day when the Great Convocation finally concluded, with the Brotherhood of Shinsei declaring the Order of the Five Rings a false path. Immediately, a delegation was sent to Otosan Uchi to confront Gorino with this decision, and the radical monk simply snapped. In the presence of Emperor Hantei the 13th and the entire Imperial Court, Gorino raged at the delegation from the Brotherhood of Shinsei, threatening to unleash his followers upon them and see all their temples razed to the ground. And in that moment, Gorino lost everything. When Doji, Kami founder of the Crane clan, invented the Imperial Court, it had been created as a gentler, more politic alternative to the battlefield, an arena where subtlety and decorum was to reign supreme. By giving in to his temper upon learning that his doctrine had been declared heretical by the Brotherhood, Gorino had lost his own, his face, in front of everyone, and especially in front of the Emperor. Whether it was this unseemly outburst or the monk's threats that did it, something seemed to click in Hantei the 13th. To Gorino's shock and horror, Hantei the 13th, his most important backer, now turned against him. The monk himself was banished from the imperial capital, and the Order of the Five Rings was declared anathema by imperial edict. Many in the Imperial Court must have been left reeling by the sudden dramatic reversal. Mere instants ago, Gorino and the Order of the Five Rings had seemed supreme, wielding incredible influence and enough power to try and force a merger of two great clans against their will. And now, it was nothing. For without the Emperor, Gorino himself was nothing. The monk left Otosan Uchi in disgrace and was never heard from again. Okoto Kento, the Lion Clan champion that had backed Gorino, and Kitsu Eiji, the daimyo that had facilitated their alliance, were forced to commit seppuku in order to free the Lion Clan from the stain of having supported a false path. The next clan champion was Kento's cousin, the staunchly traditionalist Akodo Renzu. Word of the imperial edict sanctioning the Order of the Five Rings spread across the empire, And just like that, Gorino's movement melted away as if it had never been. The peasants returned to their homes and their daily lives. The monks that had joined him quietly faded back into the ranks of the Brotherhood of Shinsei. The Heresy of 5 Rings was over. The Empire would enjoy a brief period of peace, only to have that rudely ended by arguably the most infamous man to ever sit the Chrysanthemum throne, the Emperor who would be remembered in infamy as the Steel Chrysanthemum. Until then. It is the Sengoku Jidai. Besieged and surrounded by his enemies, a lord pays a group of men to see his only child to safety. But do they have the skill to ensure her safety? And can they even be trusted? For this is an age of honor and treachery, of blood and valor, of gold and steel. Now available at Amazon, Smashwords, and at StudioBrainstorm.net. Links in the description.